Not really.
Take two of
Well,
video one.
take two of video.
Yes,
We're
sir.
yeah.
So we were
Start off
talking
with
about,
yeah.
yeah,
I guess let's start off with your sport because that led us to where we wanted to be, anyways. So you can start
excellent.
off
Okay.
there.
All right. So I guess I'll start off with mentioning that I'm in community work, um, which is about, you know, connecting people to resources and strengthening communities. And um, it's a lot about networking, right? So, the goal, the end goal, regardless of where I end up, whether I end up working with seniors or newcomers, troubled youth, whatever, um, is to help empower people to be the change their lives, right? Uh, So that's basically it, and it's not as simple as just helping, right? It's more so helping people be self-sufficient, right? And as you know, I was already in on a years back in 2019. I graduated from George Brown College with a diploma in child youth care.
Oh yeah.
Yeah,
You know, I forgot that about you, man.
which was still at the time I think that's what I wanted. But at the time I was also seeing the world through rose-colored glasses, in that I have a history of addiction and mental illness, and once I got sober, I had this delusions of grandeur type thing where there was
Nothing.
glory in it. There was this feeling of I'm an ex-addict, I'm this and that, and I'm gonna save lives and get on the front lines and join the fight, right? And then it turned out it was not really where I wanted to be, right? Because it was just
I ever tell you I was enrolled for that course.
George Brown
Shot,
too.
no, not for George Brown, Seneca, but like the far one at King City. So I was enrolled
Okay,
in it,
okay,
and I went to a couple classes, and then the guy told me he was telling me stories and interesting, and then he said he got a call from a young teen who you know was in sex work, right? And she
right.
called him, and she was crying, she was bawling. I guess she had obviously a bad experience. She's a kid, and he had to turn her away, and he couldn't go. And I was like, this is not for me. Because I would have went, right? I'm like, this is not for me. I don't know how to not do that. And the thing is, I get it legally, but that's a terrible idea. What if somebody changes their mind? What if they blame it on you? But I can't not do it. Can't.
Yeah,
I can't.
yeah. I mean,
It's hard.
for me, there was a lot of the problem was, at the time I was dealing with the trauma of what it's like to be locked away on the psych ward for indefinite amounts of time, and then what it's like to be a drug addict and see other people kind of wither away and be slowly dying and that sort of thing. Um, And so it was hard for me to kind of, hear some of the things I was hearing, whether at group homes about sexual abuse and all of that, and be able to compartmentalize and forget about it when I go home, right? That's just,
It's hard.
that was rough. It's hard for sure. And so when I coupled that with my own, trauma, yeah, I didn't feel too good at the time. And so, yeah, so it was years of that. And then feeling stuck, and then ending up working at a grocery store, right? For 2.5 years, and that
I'm
kind
listening
of,
to you. I'm just grabbing my rings from the core. So just keep talking, grabbing my rings.
so yeah, I mean, a lot of it was, trying to get out of a position where I felt super stuck. I should have left the grocery store 4 months in and then ended up staying 2.5 years, right? But at a certain point during that time, I was reflecting and realized, like, I think that the main barrier to me moving forward was that I couldn't forgive myself for the various things I did in my past. Um, Even though other people forgave me, right? So it was like I made right on my wrongs, and there were a few people who didn't forgive me, and that's whatever, but I made the effort. Um, but yet I couldn't forgive myself. So at a certain point, I realized I had to, it's like a plane being weighted down too much with like oil cans and whatever. In order to get off that runway, you have to have a certain, lighter load. So I realized, okay, so the heavy load is me not being able to forgive myself. more than the trauma with that. And so I
Yeah.
had to let go of that to move forward. And I thought, okay, so what am I going to do now? And so I started looking at different programs, and I looked back and remembered that George Brown was a good college, and I had a pleasant experience enough in the child and youth care program. So I found community work. I was like, okay, this seems like it's more up my alley. And again, it was a bit of a gamble. You know what I mean? Like it's hard to just decide in your head. Is this the program for me, right? But based on my research and talking to different people, I thought, okay, you know what? We got to give it a crack. And the other thing is, I was realizing too that, I'm 29 right now. I'll be 30 in October. Um,
Oh, you're a baby
but
in comparison to me, bro.
yeah, well, you know what I mean. I'm young, but at the same time, I realized like I need to figure something out to with my life that's more than working at a grocery store, right? Because stocking shelves, is easy enough, but you know, was it really going to be where I wanted to go?
Yeah, and
And
not that
the
that's
answer was
that's
no.
wrong. Like, just I just want to hook it up, and not that that's like if that's where you end up, that's okay, but that is not the bar for everybody. And if
That's
you're
it.
a type of person who it's in you to want to like you're ambitious, you want to get more, then you should not let yourself be weighed down and settle for less. Right?
100%.
Yeah.
100%. A lot of it, I like working with people, both, on the team and helping customers. But at the same time, I was only using a couple skills, right? And I know that
Yeah.
with my whole history and just who I am as a person, I have more to offer than that. And yeah, I don't begrudge anybody who's in the grocery business. And some people actually, that's what they see, them doing for the rest of their lives. For instance, I knew one of my managers has said to me, I'm happy you're going back to school. He's like, it sucks for us, but I'm happy for you. And he said about himself, he's like, you know what? Like, I just wasn't the kind of guy who thrived in school. So that's why I'm here in a grocery store, right? But he said, if you have so much more. He wasn't saying he had no potential, but I'm good at school. So he said, you know what? Do that, and kind of live and become, as they say, right? So that's what brought me into the community work field. And now, after having done a placement, helping newcomers and seniors and that sort of thing, I feel this is my calling, right? This is kind of where I'm at. So yeah, that's
Uh,
kind of where I'm.
now it's close enough base, so just gotta speak over.
Sure, sure.
Um, so did you end up? Was that journey like forgiving yourself?
That's an
And
interesting journey,
I'm
man.
asking because I can tell I usually I can end up helping other people there. Nobody's ever said it to me. I can't follow my own advice, so I'd like to see what you gotta say, and maybe you can help me a little bit.
Sure, sure. Um, yeah, I mean, I know the book, so I mean, where do you want me to start on that?
Just anyway, just like the journey of that understanding that maybe you need to forgive yourself and
Look,
how you I don't know that approach that how did you get there? Maybe are you still on that journey or
I think to be honest with you, I think I'll always be on that journey, not just because of my experience, but because I'm like that kind of person who tends to be hard on himself. You know what I mean? So I'll say that I think a lot of it is I look back at I'm not gonna pretend that I was like a gangster or whatever. Um, but I did things that contributed to the addictions of other people. I put strain on my family relationships and relationships with friends and all that, and I burned more bridges than I built. Um, and I think a lot of it was, like I said, realizing that I had to let go. But another thing is, I look back on that mental illness and the addiction as being a type of battle, right? It's a type of warfare. And I think anybody who's been there, whether it's them being an addict or somebody with mental illness themselves, or even knowing somebody and being a family member of somebody with those struggling, it is a warfare. And I think something that I had to kind of think about was uh, to change my mentality about that past and think, okay, I did these things, but at the time, I was what, 15, 14, 15. I did the best with what I had at that time. And for me, doing the best was, you know, doing drugs. And in many ways, I feel like, drugs both saved me and almost killed me. You know what I mean? Right. So I was kind of still an addict when there was the OxyContin crisis. Um, and again, that was killing me, and in many ways, and my soul, and who I am who I was as a person at that time. Um, but at the same time, I kind of got out while the going was good, right? Because then fentanyl came around, and honestly, if I was an addict when there was fentanyl around, I think I would have been dead. But anyways, back to the
Yeah,
whole forgive.
I'm thankful you weren't, man.
Yeah,
Honestly.
yeah, yeah. That's yeah. But back to the forgiving myself, So I think a lot of it was that, being able to say, okay, it was a bad time. There was a type of warfare, and shit happened, for lack of a better term. Um, and that's not to say that I don't take ownership for the things I was a part of and all that. But I think, I had to accept that, what? I did some things that I'm not proud of, but you know, what kind of human
So
doesn't
don't
have
mind me.
regrets? And
Don't mind me.
yeah, I don't, some people have regrets. And the other thing is, how do I put it? Okay, so I learned that, you know, it's one thing to beat yourself up for making a mistake, right? But if you learn from that mistake, then there's a silver lining, and that can be used as a positive thing, you know. In many ways, I realized I don't want to become an old man and be on my deathbed and say, like, if I'm going to beat myself up, I'll beat myself up then for the things I do. But if I learn from something, then there's a positive thing. So why beat myself up for learning something? You know, the school of hard knocks was, an expensive education, for lack of a better word, or to phrase it, but at the same time, it made me who I am, right? And another thing to think about too, when forgiving oneself, is that, you know, yeah, we all make mistakes. We're human. Um, and so we can't change the past. You know what I mean? I've met a lot of people, and
Yeah.
I've had this mentality before of, I wish I could have done this. I wish I could, and there's not a day that goes by where I don't think about the things I wish were different. But at the same time, I can't go back. Unless I have a time machine or whatever, and I can go back and change things, there's no going back. The only way is to go forward, right? So, and then I think too that, if I didn't go through those things, I wouldn't be the person I am today, I'll give you an example. I mean, like my parents, my lovely parents, they couldn't have kids of their own, right? And so they adopted me when I was a baby, and they're all I know, and they're my parents. And I know sometimes, you know, they may feel that things could have been done differently, but the reality is, I'll give you an example. My mom came to Canada, back during the Vietnam War, with a draft dodger, right? And he was escaping America because he didn't want to fight, understandably so. Um, but if she hadn't escaped to Canada with him, then she wouldn't have later met my dad, and so everything is like connected in that way. You know what I mean? But you know, forgiving oneself is the best thing to do
It's hard
therapeutically.
though. It's hard. It's
It's very
hard.
hard. And if I had sometimes people have this question too for me, not just regarding forgiving myself or that sort of thing, but I'm asked sometimes, what's the answer, right? What's the proper answer? What's the magic? And there is none that I can find. You know what I
There
mean?
isn't. There isn't.
If I knew, like, if we all had the magic answer to things, nobody would be an addict and nobody would have mental illness.
Would be no
It'd be
problem.
a different world. But we don't have that. So I think, and also the thing to consider is that addiction or mental illness is not something that you can just read a textbook about and then understand it, right? Like doctors,
Yeah.
psychiatrists, they're medical practitioners, and some of them are the best in their field. Um, and they study the textbooks. And I'm not saying that that's wrong because it's essential
Yeah.
for their careers. But at the same time, you have to kind of think that that's only half the battle, right? It's the same with community work or anything. It's only half the battle.
Listen, buddy. Listen, buddy. This is what I put in my resume every time I apply. Well, I read this in my textbook, so I'm ready for this job.
Right. But you know what
I
I
feel
mean, right?
personally attacked. No, I know. I'm just joking. I was like, I feel personally attacked.
Ah, but
No, I get
then
you.
the other
I get
part
you.
of the other part of the education is to go out and do it, right? Like, so for my program, I have placements, right? Where I go out and learn how it really is. So there's two aspects to the learning of things.
Yeah,
So,
that's it.
and I guess my point with the whole addiction and mental illness thing is there's no magic formula. You know what I mean? I'll give you an example. I was on 12 medications before my current one for schizophrenia, and
Mm.
the rest didn't work, right? And so
I
now
know
I'm
that.
on, yeah, now I'm on clozapine, which is, kind of known to be the last resort.
Yeah.
Yeah. So it's the last resort, and that's why it's one of the few mental health medications that's paid for by the Canadian government. Because it can be dangerous. It hasn't been in my case, thank God, but it can be. But the other one didn't work. So I was on, I'll give an example. I was on one called olanzapine. That's where I gained a lot of weight and became obese and all that.
Yeah, you're
But,
looking really good now, man.
oh, thanks, man. Yeah, you too. But you know what I mean? So the thing is that what works for one person may not work
And not
for,
work for the next, right?
yeah, exactly. So it's the same with forgiving oneself. It's the same with, in general. It's like, we all have to kind of find our paths, the things that work for us. Um, and I think one of the most important things, which is hard to understand, or it's easy to understand, it's hard to really
Hard to put it in
internalize it.
practice. Yeah.
Yeah, it takes practice, but also we're not alone. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
Of all the, because I can think of times in my life where I felt, you know, more disconnected, not even human almost. You know what I mean?
Yeah, because that's the
But
weird thing. You don't actually feel human anymore. You feel kind of so isolated that you're like a different being, right? Like that's the weird feeling. It's like you're a different being. So you can't relate to even you can have people around you, but you still feel alone because it's like you're not around your own kind. You're in your own almost like alternate reality, right? And it's
100%,
difficult. But
100%.
that's how I feel sometimes, and it's a lonely
That's right.
place to be. You know what I mean? It's a lonely place to be. And for me, like
Yeah,
on my end, it's very like what we're doing right now is just like I'm like, okay. So I'm like I'm getting to connect with you, so I feel less alone, right? But
100%.
outside of this, if I'm not doing something like actively like this, no matter what I'm doing, I feel so alone. I feel so lonely. And so it's hard to live like that. You know what I mean? Like it's very difficult to is it's hard. You know what I mean? It's hard. It's hard. It's hard. Sorry. Yeah, you go on, sorry.
No, it's okay. No, this is
Yeah.
the conversation. So yeah, 100%.
No,
I hear you. But I
that's
know what you
that's
mean.
what it's hard for me. It's hard for me.
Yeah, yeah. And the other interesting thing is, and something that I think we should explore going forward with these is, everybody's alone in their own way, right?
Yeah.
Now, I say we're not alone physically. We're not alone.
Yeah.
Statistically, we're not alone. There's like thousands and millions
Cool.
of people all around the world dealing with mental illness or addiction.
Oh yeah.
So we're not alone in that sense. But one thing that I think is important to acknowledge when we feel like we're alone is that we can be united as people, regardless of our religion and faith and whatever, by the pain, right?
No, it's
So
true. It's true.
a
But
lot of
that's
people
kind of
don't.
it's like it's like that was like my whole methodology with the group that I built, right? The whole
Yeah.
idea of it is that the more people we get in, the more people who join, there's always going to be somebody there who's experienced something similar to you. So you're not alone. And I put categories of as many different things as I can possibly put. And it's like, so you can go into that category and just write, this is my experience with depression, anxiety, anything. Like, and it lights up. So when somebody else comes on, if they have a similar experience, they can hop in and they can talk to you so that nobody ever has to be alone. Like, that is the objective. I don't want anybody to have to sit down and feel like I'm alone. You know, that's the goal. And it's, I don't know, I call it like a delusion or too grandiose, a manic grandiose thought. Like delusions of grandeur. But I'm just like, if I could create a small pocket where no one is alone, I can eliminate the problem, right? And that's, it's delusional. I know it's delusional, but that's my philosophy, right?
I don't think it's delusional at all. I think actually that's quite achievable. And I think I'll tell you why. And I think, if you and I, if we could, if our
Yeah,
attitudes are to make the
yeah,
giant world change, right? We're gonna find that we fall short.
yeah.
However, I think, even if we only reach 5 people, right? Let's say, but just a number I'm throwing out. Let's say we only help 5 people. People see this channel, people see these videos, but only 5 of them actually take anything seriously, which I doubt, but let's just pretend.
Okay.
That's that 5 people, if they feel not alone because of what we're talking about, then we've accomplished so much. So I think, it's important to, rather than focus on the number, to focus on the content and to focus on,
I guess the
this.
ideology and the concepts,
Exactly, yeah. Yeah. And, so, yeah, I think what we're doing is going to be hopefully beneficial, but I think it will be.
that's the goal.
That's
That's
the
the
goal. But
goal.
the other thing is, like, I think, and I'll say this right now, I mean, this is our first
Okay.
video of what I hope to be
Mhm.
many, and I think,
I hope this, man.
you know,
This is good. Like I'm loving this, man.
yeah, me too, man. But I think the other thing to consider is, even if we're just talking to each other,
Yeah,
I'm gaining a lot from just, even outside
yeah.
of here, because we've been talking about doing this for,
We
what, over a
we've
year.
talked about this for over a year, and we've like shared experiences with each other for God, 3 years. Yeah, like 3 years. We've shared a lot, right?
Yeah. So, these are helpful for us to do, I would say, regardless of,
Yeah,
reaching out
it's
a wide
cathartic. You know
audience.
what I mean? It's cathartic,
Yeah.
and it's like it's a little bit different from like the two other interviews that I did, right?
Hmm.
Because it's not an interview, this is just us talking, but it's like it's different in the sense where, you know, if something's bugging me, it's like still talking to my buddy, right? So it's like if something, if we say something that hits hard, it's like it still feels intimate, like I'm talking to my friend. So it doesn't
Right.
I don't feel weak, right? I don't even really feel vulnerable. I feel like I'm just expressing myself to my right, and I kind of like that vibe because
Yeah.
the interview I did, I was confident and I talked through it and everything was fine, but afterwards I felt like I opened up and I let this vulnerable part of me show through. It's, the stories I said don't hurt me when I watch back. It's the fact that I can see parts where I was vulnerable, and that makes me feel weak. Because I have trouble dealing with that. I shouldn't,
Yeah.
but
I
I have
no,
trouble dealing.
100%. And I think it's important to realize that I think that the greatest weakness, and I'm not just talking about our personal stories and being able to tell them, but
Yeah, yeah,
in society and the world, is not being able to talk about it.
yeah,
And
yeah,
that might
yeah. No,
sound
I agree.
cliche, like,
No, no, no. I agree 100%. I say this to people. I tell people that the pathway to healing is first experiencing what you feel, and then that's and then executing. That's where you go. You have to acknowledge that you feel, and you can reach out for help, right? Like reaching out for help and talking about it is a good thing. I have not been able to. There's been a lot of times where I've scrolled through my phone and looked through your number because I'm like, I got something going on. I need to talk to anybody, somebody. And I scroll and I open it. They have typed paragraphs of stuff, and then I'm like, screw it, I'll deal with it myself. And then I'll sit quietly by myself, and I'm like, and it's just like I force myself. I sit there quietly, and I'm fogged out, and whatever it is just weighs on me. And eventually, of course, I deal with it because that's just how I am. But did I deal with it healthily? I don't know. Right? It's like I should have just reached out. I should have reached out, and even if you didn't get back to me, you would at least see it at some point. You know what I mean? And I did it because people gotta realize that it's okay to reach out. It's not me. You know what I mean? It's not. It's not. I'm trying to learn that. I'm trying to learn that. And
But
oh,
again,
it's
yeah, it might sound crazy, but the first step really to making any change is knowing the change you got to make. Because I've seen lots of people out there who they don't even know what they want to change. The other thing I'll say about being vulnerable, uh, life is vulnerable no matter how you look at it.
oh yeah.
You know, but I'll say, I think as soon as you start to feel the discomfort, that's
Probably
actually,
good thing. Probably
it's
good
a
thing.
good sign.
A good thing,
I'll
right?
give that analogy of a crab, let's say. So crabs throughout their lives, they molt, right? They shed. The snakes are the
Mm-hmm.
same. Shed their skin, they molt.
Share this way.
That's uncomfortable. And during that time, when they're trying to step out of their shell and grow, they're easily prey for predators, right?
Yeah, they're exposed. They're exposed.
But the only way for them to possibly grow is if they shed those layers.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So I think it's important to realize that growth is uncomfortable. You
So
know,
uncomfortable.
but you got to do
Change
it.
is
Otherwise,
change is
what?
difficult. Change is
Yeah,
difficult.
change is
Change is
difficult.
difficult.
100%. Change.
I learned that
But
from a textbook buddy.
that a good textbook it was, I'm sure. No,
No,
but it's true.
it's good. I read it from front to back. It's good. Okay.
Yeah, it's
One of the
true.
textbook. Yeah, change is difficult. It's one of the even good change causes us a lot of stress. It is just potentially good stress if we manage it. You know what I mean? Like if we manage it and we get to the other side, then it's potentially a good thing. If we don't, then obviously it just works the same way as general stress, anyways, right? Because we just didn't handle it. It's like a new job is great, but then if you now let that weigh you down, right? Then it's not gonna have the same effects, right? These are interesting. These are interesting. It's all about management. You know what I mean? It's all about management. And
100%. And I think a lot about fear as well.
yeah, yeah.
Fear and bravery.
I'm gonna go ahead
I
and
think,
then.
yeah, I think, okay, so I think if I'm afraid of something, it means that I'm sentient. It means I'm a human. There was a time where I didn't feel much fear
Yeah,
in my life.
it's important.
And fear can be crippling. It can keep us
Yes, it
from
does.
growing and from moving forward. Fear can also, we can use it to look at as a way of, how do I put it? Like putting the fire beneath our tuchus, fire underneath our asses. And we can use that fear to actually move forward, right?
I actually have one, and this is technically in a book, but it was from a group therapy I had, right? And it was about anxiety and worry. And
Yeah.
basically, it's about if your anxiety is going to routes like this, right? And then
Yeah.
you get to the top. So say it's like you have a fear of riding the bus. You
Yeah.
get to the top. If you hop off the bus before your stop, every time you ride the bus, it's always going to go right to the top. The thing with like anxiety and stress and stuff like that is that in general, it'll reach its peak and then it comes down. Your body regulates itself and it tries to come down in most cases. So, so if you go and you stop here, every time it goes to the top point, every single time. But if you stay on the bus, it goes down. And then the next time it's not as high and it comes down. And so on and so forth. And your anxiety eventually reduces over time. So it's like you kind of have to confront the problem, even if you're afraid. or else the problem's still gonna stay there. It doesn't go away unless you confront it, right? And so that's what I learned from that. There's certain instances I can practice it, certain instances I might actually have to reach out for help for, because that bus analogy is actually true to me. I haven't been
Yeah.
able to ride the bus for almost a year. I haven't been able to. And so I'm probably gonna need somebody to help me do it, but I'm going to try. I'm gonna try it. I'm gonna try. That's a fear that I have, and I think I'm gonna need help, but it's something I need. It's essential to get around the city. I'm going to, like we said, reach out for help. I'm gonna actually have to get somebody to help me do it. But I'm gonna confront it. I'm gonna confront it.
Well, let's do it, and we'll help you.
Yeah. Well, I mean, if you're serious, I do it. I'm getting nervous about it, but no, I do it.
I think it's yeah, yeah. I think yeah, just you gotta work through it, man. I mean,
You gotta work
and
through it.
yeah,
You
I'm
gotta work
happy to
through
help
it.
you. I think in general,
Yeah, you gotta work through it. You gotta work through it.
and I think for me, uh, I'll talk about my sobriety.
Yeah.
I think the thing that got me sober was fear. It was actually the fear of staying stagnant, the fear of, knowing what's going to happen to me, right? Knowing that I will die if I continue doing this, or I
Yeah,
won't. Maybe a worse existence is being a shell of my former self, or a
losing
shell
yourself,
of the
right?
potential, right? Um, you know, and that's terrifying because I know there's so much I can do and so much I will do, and so the idea of not moving forward, I'll tell you, uh, you might know, I can't remember if I mentioned it to you, but to some people it might be foreign to news. I got a surgery coming up,
Oh,
where they're gonna have to take out my gallbladder. Again, it was no one's forcing me, right? It's really me that they said we think that the doctors, the surgeon, they said we think that the best option for you, given your pain level and wherever, is to get it removed. So I said, okay, I'll do it. Truthfully speaking, I'm shaking my boots, man. I haven't been put under general anesthesia before, and but at the same time, there's a blessing. You know, the fact that I'm afraid that I might not wake up means I want to be here. You know what I mean?
well,
But I also taught me a lot because I have to also know that the end goal, the pros outweigh the con. So, and like many battles in life, times where there's uncertainty or there's doubt. I gotta think about, we as humans have to think about the end result, the end goal. Now, what will we ever get to that end goal? Who knows? Many of us will. I treat my own life as a construction site. Everything's in the works forever because I
we'll
want to
always
grow.
go there. We'll always go
Yeah,
there.
but at the same time, I have to keep that. Who are we without faith? And I'm not talking about needing to believe in God, although
Yeah.
I believe in God a lot, and even though I'm not a particularly religious Jewish person, but there's beautiful things to come, but we have to hold on to some level of faith, regardless of religion or whatever, right?
Yeah.
I think the scariest thing is if we can't dream, if we don't have dreams and goals and ideals, then what are we? So,
Sure.
it's about the bravery aspect, about it's okay to be afraid, right? But what are we going to do
I
with
mean,
it? Are we going to progress, or are we
I
going to?
like how you say that. I like how you say that. I think, and again, you can laugh and call me a weird idealist or whatever, but I think a premature death is when you stop thinking. You know what I mean? I feel like we we in The Walking Dead is the moment we stop training, the moment we feel like this is it, you know what I mean, is when we kind of die. We're just not in it anymore. And for me, even if I don't get somewhere, I always have to be saved. Always. There has to be something. And the thing is, it doesn't even need to be so large. You know what I mean? Like it can be the smallest things. Like I just want to have the best garden this year. You know what I mean? Like tiny things, but like once you just lose those things and just exist, I think that it's too hard to go on that way. What what life do you have? You have to look something forward to something. There needs to be some sort of aspiration. There needs to be something that you want, something that you dream of, something that gives you passion. You know what I mean? Life without passion is non-existence to me, anyways, right? And so I just tell everybody if you have some sort of team goal, want, need that fills you with a special warmth that you know keeps you going. Because without it, what are we? We have to make up our own, I guess, reasons to exist. I mean, sure, whether you're religious or not, we have free will, and therefore our choices are ultimately ours. And so, our reasons for being here, we have to make, regardless of if you're religious or not. You know what I mean? And so, make the best out of it. You have one life. You got one life. Shoot for the moon. You know what I mean? In my opinion, I don't.
Doesn't sound silly. No, no, no. That makes a lot of sense. And I agree. I mean, this might be controversial of me to say, but I'll say it because it's my own truth. I would say needing an empty house for oneself or not, just barely scraping by to be worse than death,
It is.
You
In my
know,
opinion, it is.
existing is hard enough as it is. There's always going to be, difficult things that adversity is the word I want
Yeah.
to use, in life. But I can safely say that I was dead.
Yeah.
The drugs made me dead. And the addiction and the mental illness and I lost a lot of time on the ward in a psych ward. Where in many ways I felt like I was caged, like an animal. And that was death to me. That was hell to me. You know what I mean?
Funny. I have kind of the opposite experience to that. Felt like that. So I went to get admitted, and because I present too well, it turned me away. I needed to be admitted. If I was anybody else, we wouldn't be having this conversation. I just kind of felt that I'm wired this way because that was end times. That was the end game. He turned me away. All I wanted was somebody to talk to.
And that's a sad fact about the system.
The system's right.
You're either turned away and not taken seriously, or you're locked away.
Yeah.
And I think there has to be
A middle ground.
a middle ground. It's the
ground.
same with I've read about there's been talks about first responders not always being police officers, right? So having community workers or social workers be the first ones, because the reality is that I'm not saying the police shouldn't be around and all of that. I've had mainly negative experiences with police in my life, but I see a purpose in them. But I think what's really necessary is somebody to hear somebody out. I think that's one of the best de-escalation techniques, is to hear people out. When people feel heard, they stop to think. And that's the most important thing.
It's like that's, you know what's weird about that being such a problem, and you hear just like so many problems like that with police officers, is that's like customer service 101. You know what I mean? Like as a manager, do you know how many people have flipped out on me? And I'm like, I gotta make this person feel good. You know what I mean? And it's like I gotta make them feel heard, I gotta make them feel validated. And that's just what you do. And nobody trains you in that in customer service. So why is it that it seems that they have such a difficult time doing something so simple, especially as an authority figure? It should be easy.
Should be.
Should be. Should be. Yes, they can do it though.
Another thing is, people skills and interpersonal skills are not necessarily inherent to everyone. Not everyone has those skills. That's not to say that they can't work on them and develop them. But yeah, I think you're right about the police and customer service, and I can think of many times when we work together, not necessarily between you and I, but with customers. They just want to, vent a little bit, you know. And so our job is to put them at ease and say, okay, like,
Yeah,
let's say they were angry we didn't have the whatever 3% milk that they wanted,
yeah.
right? And they're
That's
like,
so
I came
accurate, bro.
down.
That's so
They're,
accurate.
yeah, they're like, I came down here. I came down here. It took me an hour to get here, and you don't have the. And then we say, all right, well, somehow we'll make it right in some way. We had a little bit of leeway, you more than I, being a assistant manager. And if we couldn't solve it, then we'd give it to the store manager, MOD, right? But things were made right. But 99% of the time, the answer was the person just wanted to hear that we were sorry for the inconvenience and see what we can do, right? I mean, the worst thing you can say is, I can't do that. Or,
Yeah,
that sucks for you, right?
the amount of times I just have gotten like just the weirdest things from customers, and I'm just like, let me just make this right. You know what I mean? I had someone come in and bring a box of chocolate from Halloween, and they wanted to return it. So I got called in the back, and I was actually kind of in a bad mood that day. I was kind of in a bad mood, and they called me, and I'm like, why are they calling me? So I rushed out to the front, and I'm like, okay, what's going on? And they're like, well, he wants to return this box of chocolate. Well, you can't really do that. It's open. So I'm like, in my mad mood, I'm trying to talk to the cashier, and I'm like, why? What's the reason? And she's like, he said that he doesn't want to have the box of chocolate because if he keeps it at home, he's gonna eat it all. And I looked down, and I looked up, and I looked at her, and I'm like, give him the refund. Give him the refund. And then I ran off because I'm like, I'm like, that was the funniest reason for anything. Look at that. It's so there. He's like, I'm gonna get fat. I don't want to eat it all. I was like, yeah, no problem, bro. Get your
Props to
10
you,
bucks
man.
back. Get your 10 bucks
Self
back.
control.
Yeah. Well, I had to keep the stone face. You know what I mean? Being like, literally been like, yeah, you're gonna get that refund. I turned around and I had to spin it. I'm gonna get the fast hot. Oh man, customer service is hilarious. But it teaches you a lot of life skills. It teaches you a lot of life skills.
I'm
I've
sad.
learned, I've learned how to deal with people just by customer service and helping them before. So like, so just learn. Right. It's just so it's what the marks of nature. No, everyone is born from something. Try to look respect as best as you can. Dang. That's how you get the type of employees. It's the only way. It's the only way. At least that's how I see it.
No, I agree with you.
That's how I
You're
see it.
right. I think you're onto something.
But yeah, I think so. I think it's almost like customer service should be a requirement for a lot of professions. Interestingly enough, it should be because if you're good at it, it teaches you compassion. It teaches you understanding. Even if you are introspective and you realize how you feel when somebody treats you poorly, you might not want to treat somebody else the same way. And so you learn from that. Conversely, it could also teach you the future. If you get treated poorly, you're like, I'm going to treat the next person poorly. So it really is dependent on the person, but the hope is that you learn something.
Yeah, and that relates to life too. You could see things as an eye for an eye. You know, like, okay, that guy was the schmuck around me, so I'm gonna treat the next guy like a schmuck. But
The stranger.
but you know what I mean, right? Like,
I guess you. I guess you. I
yeah.
guess you. I guess you.
But the
I guess you.
reality is, if we want to build a better life for ourselves and for others, this eye for an eye thing is not the way.
It's not the way. And there was a while in my life where it was terrible because for the people that were the closest to me, like the closest to me, I'm incredibly nice, right? So I have an incredibly high standard of treating people well. But my thing is if anybody did anything to me that was in that circle, because of my high standard, I'm not gonna eye for eye you. I'm going to take up all eyes. Right? Like that was because I'm like, how could you do that to somebody who treats you like this? And so I had to learn. I'm like, one, not everybody is supposed to treat you as well as you treat them. the standard that you hold, it's not worth praise. It's not, you don't do it for praise. So I never did it for praise. I just felt like I had to do something to counter it, right? That was my mentality. I had to do something to counter it. And I got to realizing that no, you do what you do out of love, and you countering it that way is because it hurts. And so express yourself about what's hurting you. Use it. Don't weaponize your pain, right? Don't weaponize your pain. I had to learn that. I learned that's why I'm like I had to
Yeah.
learn after my daughter. I learned that. That was the
Well,
lesson.
yeah, and you're making me think as well about this reality that it's easier to destroy than to build.
Yeah, yeah. It's so much easier to just tear things down. Like even look at relationships, right? It is so much easier to ruin a relationship than to save it. It is so much easier to ruin it than to save it. Saving it, you have to have all the hard conversations. You have to go through the experience of I don't like you right now. You know what I mean? You have to go through the experiences of learning how to love the person again and again and again. But it's so easy to break, cheat, not help, leave, be distant, not affectionate. It's so much easier than having to work on it. Because working on things is a lifetime endeavor. People don't really realize it is for life. Your relationships, your friendships, your family, your spouse, whatever. It is a lifetime effort that you have to put in. You just have to kind of willingly do it. You know what I mean? It gets a little bit easier when you willingly do it. When you don't look at it as a burden, it becomes a little bit easier to manage. Because like even for me, it's still hard. I like my space. I like to be by myself. I'm a recluse, but that doesn't work with friendship. You know, like I'll take so long to respond to a text, right? And say I will, I'm going to, and then I'm like I'm not. And then when I respond, it's because it really click back into my head that you're a friend and I don't want to lose you, right? So then I respond back to you. But like at the time, I'm like, I'll get to it, I'll get to it, I'll get to it, I'll get to it, into it. And so like, oh my God, like this, I'm getting hard. I'm like, I don't want to lose my friend. I don't want to lose my friend. And I'm
Yeah.
responding back to him. So work. I'm gonna work at it all the time.
Yeah. And the reality is, man, life will be full of disappointment. The whether
Yeah.
it's we disappoint ourselves, whether we disappoint others, or whether they disappoint us. I mean, it's just inevitable. I think the thing is, it's again with this destroying piece. It's easy to be angry and to hold a grudge. In fact, I struggle a lot myself with holding grudges, and it's funny too because the grudges I hold are very little, like in terms of insults, right? It's not like the big things. It's just these little things, like he looked at me wrong, or whatever. He took a tone with me, like how dare he, all that sort of stuff. But I think the reality is, it's just I have to, I know in my mind that I don't want to be an angry guy. You know what I mean? I don't want to. It hurts me more than it hurts them. I mean, most of the grudges I hold, which, like I said, are minor things, over minor things, the person doesn't even know I'm angry at them. They have no concept of the fact that I'm angry at them. And so who is it really hurting to hold the grudge? Is it hurting them? No, not at all. It's hurting me. It's destroying me. And for me, I think one of my greatest addictions was anger. I'd say I'm a pretty not angry guy now, but I always have that streak in me. You know what I mean? And anger will get you far in life if you want it. Like anger will make you do things, but at the end, it's like a double-edged sword. You end up cutting yourself with your own weapon. So,
What's really funny about that is for me at the very end, I can't let it go. It's hard
yeah,
because
me too.
when I'm
Oh,
angry, I'm not. I have no
yeah,
anxiety. The pain temporarily is gone, so it's easier for me to function. I can focus a little bit better when I'm super angry, but it's not productive, right? And so I have to kind of dial with that.
yeah,
But it's scary because if I don't have the ability to tap into that, like I feel like all of these other things are going to consume me, right? And so like when I'm angry, they don't bother me. So it's like it's easier to like just by myself, not with other people, but just by myself. But even it's like in situations where, say, like you said, like somebody looks at you, somebody does something. Like if somebody disrespects me outside, I'll tend to avoid the confrontation. But it's like if I keep avoiding the confrontations, I'm just gonna keep getting walked on. And then I'll notice when I get upset, nobody wants to walk on me, right? So then it's like I'm like, I can't lose this anger because that's the only thing that stops people from walking on me because they don't respect the calm, right? But the thing is, the calm is not really the calm. The calm is me backing down, and that is what the problem really is. I have to not back down. It might extend the situation, but I have to not walk away from it. And so it's a learning process for me to try to, you know, deal with that. Because I generally like it sounds like I say I do everything all the time, but I'm actually calm well 99.9% of the time. It's just that I know it's just naturally internally in myself that I have this anger there. And I fight against it, but I know it's there, and I know it makes me feel better. So it's a balancing act, right? It's a balancing act that I have to work on.
Well, it's kind of like a bit of fight or flight, really,
But yeah, yeah,
right? Because when when an animal, let's say, is being chased by a predator, something trying to eat it or whatever, all that animal can think of in that instance is I gotta get away, right? I think
yeah.
anger raises that adrenaline, right? So you're focused, but at the same time, yeah, in the end, that's the thing about this sort of thing. It's like there's all these false triggers that set off our fight or flight
Yeah.
reflexes and reactions, and most of them are not actual danger.
Most of the time they're
But yeah,
not, right? Like that's something I learned in group where they're like I basically like my problem is that I just continually experience that fight or flight response over damn near everything, right? And I'm not allowing myself to realize that this is not a dangerous situation. And because I'm not doing that, it's just a continuous cycle, right? And it's because I'm always going to be triggered that it's danger. Like I guess an anxiety response called checking, right? Where you keep checking things. And so I used to do it so much that I'd actually be late for work. And so they were like, well, I want you to take one thing out. Just one thing out. Just one thing. Out of all of your counting, take one thing out. And I'm like, I can't do that. They're like, do you need it all? I said, no, I barely need any of it. They're like, and take the one thing out. Not everything. You can keep doing it, but take the one thing out. But I panicked. I was panicking. When I took it out, I really had a panic attack. I was freaking out. But
yeah,
it's like there's nothing dangerous about taking an empty bottle out of my bag. It was empty. I didn't need it. But for me, it felt like the world, like somebody was attacking, right? And so I have to learn to deal with my responses like that. And another thing I'm working, I'm trying to get
no,
through that. It's
you're
embarrassing though. It was a bottle. It was an empty bottle, but it was an empty bottle.
I don't think it's you shouldn't be embarrassed over that. We all got
Uh, but no, this
I
is
hear you.
what funny. Like it was empty bottle from vape juice from a vape. I don't use any, but I kept the empty bottle in case I would use the vape.
I hear you. Yeah,
The rationalization, like the way we rationalize things that don't actually make much sense is almost artistic. You know what I mean? It is almost artistic. Like you just go down the spot stream in order to make this thing that doesn't make sense seem like it makes sense, and then you justify it. You know what I mean? Then we justify it, and that's it. You kind of have to look inward to that and really sometimes even write it down. Like just write it down and read it. Because this makes sense to you. Does it make no sense to you? Write it down and just really examine it on paper. Write it down and look at it and be like, is this logical or are we just doing circular motions? Is this just gymnastics? And sometimes actually seeing it helps because
yep.
I've written some stuff down and it's like, wow, no, this doesn't make any sense at all. And then you can at least confront it. Because even if you continue, at least you know in your head, that's the start of the battle. At least you know more of them doesn't make any sense. So at that point, it's like you could take steps moving forward, but at least understanding that getting past the hump of delusion and understanding that this doesn't make sense, and then you can move forward on to the next step. That's how I work with other people, and that's how she worked with me. You have to understand it and then take the one thing out. And so I did it, and I'm working towards getting most of it out, except for the stuff that I need. That's the goal.
Yeah.
It's got a little bit of an OCD problem, right? But that's my goal. That's my goal.
It's a good goal. No.
Yeah, I guess. I guess it seems simple, but it's absolutely no,
Not that.
it's simple hard.
Yeah, I know.
Simple. You know what I mean, right? Like it's simple, just in
Hard to put into
execution.
practice.
Hard to put into practice. Hard to put into practice. But I'm gonna do it. I got 5 more things that I gotta take out. 5 more
Nice.
things, and
Yeah.
I'll get there.
But I think writing it out, like you said, was really
Yeah.
important. That's what I do all the time.
The problem with the thing that I have now is because I lose count, right?
Yeah.
So I have to count the thing that's not there in order to count the stuff that I have. And that's counterproductive because it's not supposed to be there. So it's counterproductive. So basically, I'm getting in the habit of skipping it in my head and trying to skip it and just going through because I know the number is 5. So I really don't have to know that thing as long as the number reaches 5. And so I'm working on reframing my mind that way. And then I'm going to, once I can reframe it and don't think about the other thing that I took out, then I'm going to move forward by taking something else out. It's a process. It's a process.
Yeah.
I'm learning, I'm getting better. I'm getting better.
No, that's great.
Personal growth is always a beautiful thing.
Yeah.
You know, all my mics died today. All of them died. Yeah, but I haven't used them in so long. I'm like, you gotta be charged. No, so the guys all swapping mics, and then I took out the transmitter, and I was like, "Oh, the transmitter died." I'm like, "You charged from my phone." That died, and was like, "Holy fuck it, I'll just use my phone."
No, I'll do. Nice
What
one.
do you say? You wanna call this one a wrap?
Sure.
All right, we'll call this one a wrap, and I'll see if I can save it. I'm hopefully gonna save it. I'll see if I can fix my audio. I don't know if I'm messed up, but we'll see if we can fix mine, and we will see if we can show.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, let me know when, because I'm free most times until I got another job I'm working on, but I'm free most times, so we'll figure it out.
Excellent. Yeah, and
keep in touch.
Yeah, for the people,
we'll come up with a name.
Yeah, and for people who see this, thanks for coming.
Thanks for coming.
All right. See you later, buddy.
Later.